I remember the exact moment I fell in love with Marcus Ashford. Harvard Business School mixer, 24 years old, cheap wine in hand. He cornered me by the window and talked for 47 minutes straight about photovoltaic cells and carbon capture technology, his hands conducting an invisible orchestra. The problem isn't innovation, Marcus said, blue eyes blazing. It's execution. The technology exists to revolutionize renewable energy, but nobody has the vision to see it through. I studied him. White, privileged, brilliant, and completely broke. His shoes had holes in them. What's stopping you? I asked. Capital. Connections. Time. He laughed bitterly. The usual trinity of impossibility. What Marcus didn't know was that I could have bought that entire building with one phone call. The Bennett Family Trust, built by my great-grandmother Eleanor Bennett, was worth $1.3 billion. I was her sole living heir. But I'd spent 24 years watching wealthy men dismiss brilliant black women. So when Marcus proposed 2 years later, I made my decision. I would hide my wealth. Prove that love could exist without money corrupting everything. God, I was naive. Our wedding night, Marcus made love to me like I was precious. His hands trembling as he undressed me, whispering how beautiful I was, how lucky he felt. When he kissed me, it was tender and deep, tasting like champagne and promises. He traced every curve of my body with reverent fingers, his mouth following the path his hands made. When he entered me, it was slow and deliberate, his eyes locked on mine, whispering that we were partners in everything. We moved together for hours, savoring every moment, and afterward he held me close and told me we'd build an empire together. Partners, he whispered against my hair. In everything. I believed him. For 7 years, I was Marcus's secret architect. When Ashford Technologies needed seed funding, a mysterious angel investor appeared, actually my trust, operating through shell companies. I'd pumped over $217 million into his ventures through untraceable channels. Every success Marcus celebrated, every magazine cover calling him a self-made billionaire, I had orchestrated from the shadows. But Marcus never saw me as an equal. I was his beautiful wife who threw excellent dinner parties. In year 4, I suggested a modification to his solar panel design. What if you approach the photovoltaic array from a cellular rather than grid structure? Like honeycomb geometry. Marcus looked at me with patronizing amusement. That's sweet, honey, but the physics don't work that way. Leave the engineering to the engineers. He patted my hand like I was a child. I'd spent 3 hours consulting with MIT professors. The honeycomb design would increase efficiency by 23%. 2 months later, Marcus's engineer discovered it. Marcus was featured in Wired as a visionary. By year 6, Marcus barely came home. Always another meeting, another conference, another late night at the office. Until the night I found out why. I'd forgotten my phone at his office during a company dinner. I went back at 9 p.m. to retrieve it, using my key card, one of the few reminders that I'd been instrumental in securing the building lease through my family's holdings. The executive floor was dark except for Marcus's corner office. The office I'd furnished, in the building I'd purchased, for the company I'd funded. I heard her before I saw them. A woman's breathy moan. Then Marcus's voice, low and commanding. That's it, Victoria. Right there. I stood frozen in the hallway as the sounds intensified. Her gasps. His groans. The rhythmic creak of his desk, the mahogany desk I'd had custom-made in Italy. I should have left. Instead, I moved closer to the partially open door. Victoria Sterling was bent over Marcus's desk, her red dress bunched around her waist, her hands gripping the edge. Marcus stood behind her, one hand tangled in her blonde hair, the other gripping her hip as he thrust into her with an urgency I hadn't seen in years. Her back arched, and she cried out his name with abandon. "You're so much better than her," Victoria gasped between moans. "So much more exciting." Marcus's response was a growl. "Don't talk about her. Focus on this." He pulled her upright, spinning her to face him, kissing her hard while his hands roamed her body with desperate hunger. She wrapped her legs around him, and he lifted her onto the desk, never breaking the kiss. Their passion was raw, animalistic, nothing like the tender, careful way Marcus had touched me in years. When had he stopped wanting me like that? When had I become an obligation instead of a desire? I turned and walked away silently, leaving my phone behind. I drove home in a daze, climbed into our bed, the bed where Marcus had promised me partnership and forever, and stared at the ceiling until dawn. He came home at 2 a.m., smelling of perfume and her. He didn't even bother to shower before sliding into bed beside me, assuming I was asleep. I wasn't. I was planning. 3 months later, on our 7th anniversary, Marcus came home at 11 p.m. I'd been waiting in my dress for 4 hours with reservations at our favorite restaurant. Emergency meeting with the board. You understand, he said, barely looking at me. 3 days later, a courier delivered divorce papers with a typed note. I've outgrown this marriage. My lawyers will be in touch. You'll be well taken care of. Outgrown. Like I was a phase. A starter wife. I called David Chin, my family's attorney, immediately. I need you in Boston. Tomorrow. What happened? David asked sharply. He filed for divorce. I laughed bitterly. And I'm pregnant. 3 months. He has no idea. What I didn't tell David was that I'd spent those 3 months since catching Marcus with Victoria preparing. Every document reviewed. Every shell company traced. Every thread of my hidden empire ready to pull tight around Marcus's throat. I signed the divorce papers 8 weeks later. Marcus's lawyers offered me $2 million in the settlement. A joke considering I'd invested $217 million in his company. I took it without argument. Let him think he'd gotten away clean. What Marcus didn't realize was that the empire he'd built wasn't his at all. Every major asset, every subsidiary, every patent, all ultimately controlled by shell companies traced back to the Bennett family trust. For 4 more months, while I grew heavy with his child and he paraded Victoria around Silicon Valley, I consolidated power. Every shell company, every offshore entity, every seemingly independent investor, I was calling them all home. Ready to meet your father? I asked my belly at 28 weeks. He's about to learn what real power looks like. The Ashford Technologies headquarters occupied 3 floors of a glass tower in downtown Boston. I'd chosen the building myself, though Marcus believed his real estate team had found it. The Bennett Trust owned the entire structure. I stood across the street at 1:45 p.m. on Friday, dressed in a custom Armani maternity suit that made my pregnancy undeniable. David Chin stood beside me. Last chance to change your mind, he said. I've never been more certain of anything. We entered at precisely 1:58 p.m. Marcus's executive assistant Sarah's eyes widened when she saw my belly. Miss Bennett, I didn't know you were. Is everyone assembled? I asked smoothly. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Ashford keeps asking who the new investor is. She hesitated. He brought Miss Sterling. Perfect. Let's not keep them waiting. The conference room held 17 board members and Marcus at the head of the table in a Tom Ford suit I'd helped him pick out years ago. Beside him was Victoria Sterling in a red dress, the same red dress I'd seen bunched around her waist that night. The memory hit me viscerally, Marcus kissing her with the hunger he used to reserve for me. His hands on her body the way they'd once explored mine on our wedding night. The sounds of their pleasure echoing in the office I'd purchased. Marcus looked up as I entered. His expression cycled through confusion, shock, and horror. His eyes dropped to my belly and his face went white. What the hell is going on? Marcus demanded, standing abruptly. Nia, what are you doing here? Are you pregnant? I finished calmly. 28 weeks. Sit down, Marcus. Is that his? Victoria hissed, grabbing his arm possessively, the same way she'd grabbed him while bent over his desk. None of your business, I said coldly. This is a board meeting. If you're not a board member, leave. Victoria looked at Marcus, expecting him to defend her. Marcus was staring at my belly, his face a mask of shock. The baby, he said hoarsely. When? Sit down, Mr. Ashford, David interrupted. We have significant business to discuss and your personal failings can wait. I took my seat at the opposite end of the table, the power position. David distributed folders to each board member. Marcus sank into his chair, Victoria still clinging to his arm. "Thank you for attending on short notice," I began. "I'm sure you're wondering why you received those briefing packets this morning." "This is insane," Marcus said. "Nia, whatever game you're playing." "No game," I interrupted. "Just business." "Which is something you always told me I didn't understand, isn't that right?" I smiled without warmth. "David, please explain." David stood. As of 9 a.m. this morning, the Bennett Family Trust has exercised its rights under the conversion clauses present in all preferred stock agreements dating back to Ashford Technologies' founding. The board members began muttering. Marcus's face went from white to red. "What the hell are you talking about?" Marcus demanded. Additionally, David continued, the trust has acquired all outstanding shares held by Meridian Capital Partners, Vanguard Growth Ventures, and Summit Peak Investments. Combined with direct holdings, the Bennett Family Trust now controls 73% of all voting shares in Ashford Technologies. The room erupted. Victoria grabbed Marcus's arm tighter. Marcus just stared at me speechless. I stood, placing both hands on the table. Quiet. Something in my voice, the voice of a woman raised by billionaires, cut through the chaos. The room fell silent. "Mr. Ashford, perhaps you'd like to explain to the board who actually funded your company's initial seed round?" "Meridian Capital," Marcus said automatically. "They believed in the technology." "Meridian Capital Partners is a front," I interrupted. "A legitimate VC firm that occasionally allows the Bennett Trust to invest through their name. The $750,000 you received in seed funding came from my family's trust. My money." I walked slowly around the table. "The series of funding of $5 million? Mine, through Vanguard Growth Ventures. The Series B round of $15 million? Summit Peak Investments. Another Bennett Trust subsidiary. The emergency capital during the pandemic? That fortuitous acquisition offer from Sterling Private Equity, controlled by my financial advisors." David projected images onto the screen. Bank transfers, emails, corporate filings, all showing the web of shell companies connecting back to the Bennett Trust. "Over 7 years, I invested $217 million of my family's money into your company," I said. "You thought you were self-made. You thought your genius built this empire. But Marcus, you were never building anything. You were my puppet and I was pulling every string." "Why?" Marcus whispered. "Because I loved you," I said simply. "I wanted to prove that love could exist without money corrupting it. I wanted you to see me as an equal." I placed my hand on my belly. "But you never saw me at all. I was just the pretty wife who threw good parties. When I offered business advice, you patted my hand and told me to leave the important things to the men. Every success I handed you, you claimed as your own brilliance. And when you decided you'd outgrown our marriage, you were too much of a coward to tell me in person." Marcus's eyes were glistening. "Nia, I didn't know." "No, you didn't know. Because you were too busy with your new girlfriend on the desk I bought you." I looked at Victoria for the first time. "Did he tell you that desk was custom-made in Italy? That I selected every piece of furniture in that office? That I funded every dollar that paid for the building where he had you bent over and moaning his name?" Victoria's face went scarlet. Marcus looked like he might throw up. "You knew," Marcus said to me, his voice cracking. "You knew about Victoria?" "I caught you 3 months before you filed for divorce," I said. "I came back for my phone and found you with your hands in her hair, driving into her like you couldn't get enough, telling her how much better she was than me. So yes, Marcus, I knew. I knew you were a cheater on top of being a thief." The room was dead silent. Several board members looked disgusted. James Bradford, the CFO, wouldn't meet Marcus's eyes. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "Effective immediately, I'm assuming the role of executive chairwoman of Ashford Technologies. Marcus, you're terminated. Security will escort you from the building after this meeting." "You can't do this," Marcus said desperately. "I can and I am. As majority shareholder, I control this board. I control this company. I control everything you thought you'd built." I turned to Victoria. "And you, Miss Sterling, are banned from this building. If you attempt to enter, You'll be arrested for trespassing. This is insane. Victoria shrieked. Marcus, do something. There's nothing he can do, I said. He has no power here. He never did. I turned back to Marcus. One more thing. This baby I'm carrying? She's your daughter. You filed for divorce 3 weeks after I found out I was pregnant. You didn't know because you couldn't be bothered to have an actual conversation with me. Marcus's face crumpled. Nia, please. Don't, I said sharply. You had 7 years to see me, to value me, to treat me as an equal. Instead, you took credit for my work, dismissed my intelligence, and replaced me with someone you deemed more appropriate. I placed both hands on my belly. This little girl will grow up knowing exactly who built this company. And she'll know her father was a fraud. 2 security guards appeared at the door. I nodded to them. Escort Mr. Ashford to his office. He has 1 hour. Marcus looked around desperately. No one met his eyes. Victoria was crying, mascara running down her face. Nia, Marcus tried one more time. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't care, I said. Now get out of my building. As security led him away, I sat down in my chair, the true seat of power, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The media storm was immediate and brutal. By Saturday morning, every major publication carried variations of Secret Billionaire Wife Destroys Self-Made CEO and Tech Golden Boy Built on Ex-Wife's Hidden Fortune. I sat in my penthouse scrolling through coverage. My daughter kicked enthusiastically. You like justice, don't you? I asked my belly. My phone was flooded with messages. And 17 increasingly desperate texts from Marcus. Please, Nia. Let me explain. I was an idiot. I see that now. I'll do anything. Please don't shut me out. What about our daughter? I deleted them without responding. That night, memories invaded my sleep. Marcus on our honeymoon, kissing me on a beach in Santorini, his hands sliding under my sundress as the sunset painted everything gold. You're everything, he'd whispered against my neck, laying me down on the sand, making love to me with the waves crashing nearby. I'd felt cherished. Seen. Loved. I woke up angry. Those memories were lies. He'd never really seen me. He'd seen a fantasy, a supportive wife who knew her place. Over the next week, I watched Marcus's world collapse. Speaking engagements canceled. Board positions revoked. The tech community that had worshipped him now treated him as a pariah. Victoria Sterling dumped him via Instagram, claiming she'd been deceived by his narrative. She salvaged her reputation by throwing Marcus under the bus. Marcus was photographed looking haggard outside my building. Security turned him away each time. On day 5, David entered my office. Marcus is asking for a meeting. He says he'll accept any terms. He just wants to talk about the baby. No, I said simply. Nia, from a legal standpoint, he does have rights. Then we'll handle it through lawyers, I interrupted. I'm not meeting with him. I'm not listening to his apologies. I'm not giving him the chance to manipulate me again. 2 weeks later, I attended my prenatal appointment alone. Dr. Morrison examined me, then smiled. Everything looks perfect. Thank you, I said. Are you sure you don't want to contact the father? Dr. Morrison asked gently. I'm sure, I said firmly. He made his choices. That evening, I stood in my penthouse watching the sunset. I remembered another sunset, our anniversary 2 years ago. Marcus had surprised me with a weekend in Newport. We'd made love in our hotel room overlooking the ocean, and for a moment, I'd felt the connection we'd had on our wedding night. His hands reverent on my skin, his lips trailing down my body, whispering how much he loved me. 2 months later, I'd caught him with Victoria. Every tender moment had been a lie. Every whispered promise had meant nothing. My phone buzzed. Another text from Marcus, I know you hate me. I deserve it. But please, Nia, let me be part of her life. She deserves a father. I stared at the message, then blocked his number. He was right about one thing, she deserved a father. But Marcus Ashford was not that man. At 32 weeks pregnant, I received notice that Marcus was suing for custody. His lawyers argued that I was emotionally unstable and using the child as a weapon. I laughed when David showed me the filing. He's desperate. He's also well-funded, David warned. His family is backing his legal fight. Then we fight back, I said. Document everything. The custody battle played out over the next month. Marcus's lawyers painted me as vindictive. My lawyers painted him as a cheating fraud. But I had evidence. Documentation of every stolen idea, every dismissive comment. Testimony from former employees about his treatment of women. And we had security footage from that night showing Marcus and Victoria entering his office, not emerging for 2 hours. When Marcus's lawyers saw our evidence, they approached David about settlement. He'll drop the custody suit, David told me. In exchange, he's asking for supervised visitation once a month. No, I said immediately. Nia, we fight it in court, I said. I want every detail published. I want the whole world to know exactly what kind of man Marcus Ashford is. The trial lasted 3 days. Marcus took the stand and tried to portray himself as a reformed man. My lawyers destroyed him. They showed the security footage. They documented every instance of credit stealing. They brought in former employees who testified about his treatment of women. When I took the stand, I was calm and factual. Ms. Bennett, Marcus's lawyer asked, "Isn't it true that you deliberately hid your wealth?" "Yes," I said. "So you manipulated him?" "No," I interrupted. I supported him. I gave him every opportunity to succeed. He took credit for that success while dismissing me. When he decided I wasn't good enough, he filed for divorce. Those were his choices. During a recess, Marcus cornered me in the hallway. Before I could stop him, he grabbed my hand. "Nia, please," he whispered desperately. "I miss you. I miss us. I miss the way we used to be." I remembered the way we used to be. Him kissing me slowly in our kitchen, backing me against the counter, lifting me onto it. His mouth on my neck, my collarbone lower. The way he'd made me feel desired and valued. Before he'd made Victoria feel the same way. I pulled my hand away. There is no us. There never really was. The judge delivered her ruling. Marcus was granted supervised visitation for 2 hours per month. He would pay child support. I retained sole legal custody. Marcus's face crumpled. I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. 2 weeks later, I went into labor. 39 weeks, right on schedule. I drove myself to the hospital, called David, and called my mother. I did not call Marcus. Eleanor Regina Bennett was born at 3:47 a.m., weighing 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect. Dark eyes like mine, tiny fists already clenched like she was ready to fight. "Welcome, baby girl," I whispered. "Your mother built an empire. And now you get to inherit it." Marcus found out from the news. I'd released a statement. Nia Bennett is pleased to announce the birth of her daughter, Eleanor Regina Bennett. Mother and baby are healthy. No mention of Marcus. 3 hours later, Marcus appeared at the hospital, demanding to see his daughter. Security turned him away. He tried again the next day. And the next. On day 4, he sent a message through David. "Please, Nia. I just want to see her. Just once." I read it while holding Ellie, feeling her tiny heartbeat against my chest. Part of me remembered Marcus on our wedding night, whispering about the children we'd have someday, the family we'd build. His hands gentle on my belly even then, imagining our future. But that future had died when he chose Victoria over me. "Tell him no," I said to David. "He'll see her when court-mandated visitation begins. Not before." "You've become very hard," David said. "No," I said, looking at my perfect daughter. "I've become very clear about my worth." 6 months later, I stood at the podium of the Tech Women's Summit in San Francisco, looking out at 2,000 women. "My name is Nia Bennett," I began. "And I'm here to tell you about the 7 years I spent being invisible while building someone else's empire." I told them everything. The secret funding. The dismissed expertise. The stolen ideas. The affair. The moment I decided to take back what was mine. "Never make yourself smaller for someone else's comfort," I said. "Never hide your power to protect someone's ego. And if someone betrays you, takes credit for your work, and throws you away, take back every single thing that's yours and don't look back. The audience erupted in applause. In the hotel room, Ellie slept peacefully, watched over by my mother. After the speech, a young woman approached me. "Miss Bennett, thank you. My boyfriend has been building his startup with my ideas." "Don't be afraid," I interrupted. "Document everything. And if he won't acknowledge your work, build your own empire. You don't need him." That evening, back in Boston, I received a letter from Marcus. "Nia, I know you'll probably throw this away, but I have to try. You were right about everything. I was arrogant, dismissive, and blind. I took credit for your work because it was easier than admitting my wife was smarter than me. I cheated because I was too insecure to handle your power. I've spent 6 months in therapy, unpacking why I became the man who could hurt you. It doesn't excuse anything. But I want you to know I understand now what I destroyed. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know you were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I was too stupid to see it. Our daughter is lucky to have you. I hope someday I'll be worthy of being her father. Marcus." I read the letter twice, then placed it in a folder with all the other documents from our relationship. Did I believe he'd changed? Maybe. Did it matter? No. Some things couldn't be forgiven. Some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. That night, I lay in bed thinking about Marcus. Not the Marcus who'd betrayed me, but the Marcus from our early days. The way he'd kissed me that first time outside my dorm, pressing me against the wall with gentle urgency. The way he'd made love to me on our wedding night like I was the most precious thing in his world. I'd loved that Marcus. But that Marcus had never really existed. The real Marcus was the one who dismissed my intelligence, stolen my ideas, and replaced me the moment he thought he'd outgrown me. I rolled over and looked at Ellie sleeping in her bassinet. She stirred, making small sounds, and I reached out to touch her tiny hand. "You'll never have to hide who you are," I whispered. "You'll never have to make yourself smaller. And you'll never, ever let anyone make you feel invisible." 1 year after the board meeting that changed everything, I sat in my office at Bennett Technologies, officially renamed, reviewing quarterly reports. We'd closed the battery tech deal. The honeycomb solar array was in production worldwide. The company was thriving. Ellie was in the office daycare I'd built, another innovation Marcus had called impractical when I'd suggested it years ago. David knocked on my door. Marcus's lawyer called. "He's completed his parenting classes and therapy. He's asking if you'll consider expanding his visitation." "No," I said without hesitation. "Nia, he has been working on himself." "I don't care," I said. "The court ordered 2 hours per month. That's what he gets. If he wants more, he can petition the court, and we'll fight it." David nodded. "I'll inform his counsel." After he left, I turned to the photo on my desk. Ellie at 6 months old, grinning with my smile and her father's blue eyes. She was perfect. And she was mine. I'd built an empire while hidden in shadows. I'd funded a man's dreams while he dismissed my intelligence. I'd loved someone who didn't deserve it. But I'd survived. I'd taken back what was mine. And I'd emerged more powerful than ever. My daughter would never have to hide her power. She'd grow up knowing that Bennett women built empires, and no man could take that away. Marcus Ashford had tried to outgrow me. Instead, he'd revealed that he'd never been big enough to deserve me in the first place. I didn't need his apologies. I didn't need his reformation. I didn't need anything from him except his absence. I was Nia Bennett, billionaire, CEO, single mother, empire builder. I was the queen who'd been hidden for too long. And now, finally, I ruled alone.